The research methodology section of a research paper, thesis, or any other research report is an important component of most research reports. What is the general structure and contents of a research methodology section or chapter? This is something that we will briefly respond to in this presentation. So generally, the research methodology chapter or section have these 6 parts. The first one is the introduction. The second one is the research design or type. The third one is the section that is related to the population and sample included in the research. The fourth one is the data collection or tools, the data collection tools and processes section. The fifth one is the data analysis section. And the sixth one is the section that relates to the validity, reliability, and ethical considerations of the research process. Generally, a research methodology section or chapter that miss one or more of these important components will be considered lacking in terms of the contents and in terms of quality. So in the beginning, there is an introduction to the methodology section or chapter where the general structure and contents of the methodology section are mentioned. The second and actual part of the research chapter or section is the part where there is description of the research design or the type of research. So like in social sciences, you could have a research design such as quantitative research design, qualitative research design, or mixed method research design. So we need to, the second important part of the methodology section need to have information related to what research design has been adopted and what paradigm has been referred to in terms of adopting that particular research design. Once the research design is described, the second part generally is the description of the population and sample of that is included in the research study. So what is the sample? Generally in quantitative studies, we will have one type of samples, generally large samples, because we need to generalize our findings. In qualitative studies, we will have smaller samples in order to get in-depth data. And in mixed method researches, we generally will have samples that are both quantitative and qualitative. So there will be parts of the mixed method research design where we will use quantitative sample, and there will be other parts where we use qualitative samples. Now the next part that we need to include in the research methodology section is the data collection, is the section that describes and details the data collection tools. So what data collection tools have been used? So there are several tools that we generally use in research studies. And so these include observations or interviews and questionnaires and checklists and numerous other data collection tools. So whatever data collection tools are used, we need not only to include or mention what data collection tools have been used, but we also need to rationalize and justify the use of particular data collection tools. So if you are using, for example, interviews, you need to justify why is it important that you have used interview rather than questionnaire or observation in your research study. Similarly, we also need to, in this section, we need to describe the data collection process. So what was the general data collection process? When was the data collection process started? Who were involved in the data collection process? What was the role of the researcher in the data collection process? Who else were involved in the data collection process? How were the participants approached? And so on. And so these type of questions are responded to in the data collection process section, which is a subsection of the data collection section. The next one is the data analysis section. So once we have described the data collection section and justified the data collection tools, we then need to present the data analysis process. So how was the data analysis process taken? What type of data analysis procedures were adopted? For example, in qualitative data, if we have collected qualitative data, we might need to use textual data analysis processes such as thematic analysis or qualitative content analysis. But if we have collected quantitative data, we need to describe and justify the particular types of data analysis tools, statistical tools generally, that we have used in our data analysis. And if we have collected both qualitative and quantitative data, we need to clearly and distinctly describe both types of data analysis procedures that we have adopted, and not just to describe those, but also to justify the particular data collection and data analysis procedures that we have taken in order to authenticate and validate the process of data analysis. The next section that is generally very important to be included in the research methodologies section is the validity, is the section that describes the validity, reliability, and ethical considerations of the research process. So how was the research process validated? What procedures were taken in order to get valid data through valid research tools and then analyze using valid methods? And similarly, reliability of our research tools and our research processes is also very important. And so we need to describe what measures were taken in order to ensure that our data and our analysis processes are reliable. And lastly, the most important consideration is the ethical considerations. So generally it is said that research that is not based on ethical considerations, where ethical considerations have not been taken into account, will not be a valid research. And so ethical considerations include that we need to have to describe and we need to justify that we have followed an authentic process of research, both in terms of the data collection and analysis processes, but also in terms of authentically reporting real situations, real data, and real findings based on our data. So ethical considerations also include considerations that are related to the rights of the participants in our studies. So however, their rights to, for example, confidentiality and safety, how have these considerations been taken, and how has their security, their safety, and their dignity have been safeguarded?